All right, we back again, and this time we doing a topic that I don't think I've covered yet, but this one is very dear to my heart. Spike Lee did this documentary on Michael Jackson, his journey from Motown, or journey from Motown to Off the Wall, or something to that extent. But it's a documentary that's really tight, and it highlights the part of Michael Jackson's life that is my favorite era. I call it the last days of the Afro, the last days of his original nose, and it's just Michael right pre-Thriller. That's my favorite. Anything from when he left Motown up into before Thriller is most definitely hands down my favorite Michael Jackson era. I love them all, but when we talk about Michael, if you watch him during that era, you watch his dance moves, you listen to his singing, it's a no-brainer that this guy is going to develop into the Thriller that we know him as today. And if you didn't see it coming, then you weren't paying attention. You just weren't paying attention. And so we watched the documentary, and I can talk on this subject to ad nauseum. So I'm gonna try to limit all the things I have to say, all the things I feel about that era, and keep it short and sweet if I can. It's gonna be a challenge, but I'm gonna start off by asking my co-host. I'm Kual, my co-host Maria. In watching the documentary, did you learn anything new? Is there anything that stood out?
I mean, I guess what stood out to me is what a perfectionist he is, even though I knew that. I mean, I knew that, but I just how it was, I don't know. One thing that stood out to me is at one point he had written something about wanting to be a totally different person and how he was going to be just the best. I'm a perfectionist and all those things. That stood out to me as being just a theme of the documentary, and how, I mean, in one way it can be seen as negative. I mean, negative in that he's so good. Why does he have to be perfect? Because he's already good enough. But that's why he was so great, right? Because he just kept striving for perfection. So that stood out to me. I don't know if I learned it, but it just learned something new. But it was definitely, it was an important theme that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say about that, I don't think that there's nothing negative in it. I read this book called The Secret, and it's about, thinking and phrasing things in the most positive form that you can imagine. And going for, so you imagine it, so it's like, I think, therefore I am. Whatever the mind conceives, the body achieves. And they say, you got to sometimes write down what your goals are, where you want to be, what you want to accomplish. And, you have to have that vision and that laser sharp focus. And Michael speaks of it, Kobe with his Mamba mentality, like these people that excel beyond, like even Muhammad Ali, by calling himself the greatest. Like they go on, they see these things and they put a crown above their head, like Morehouse does, that you hope that you can grow into. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Spike that went to Morehouse, my school. Anyway, so I think that you have to visualize it. You have to be focused on what you want, and you have to go after it like with just unbridled passion. And you can't accept no as an answer. And I think Michael clearly did that. Like he wrote notes about what he wanted to achieve, and then he went out and he did it. You know what I mean? So for the kids that's watching this, I think that could be inspirational. Like they can see like the blueprint of what you need to do. You have to believe that it can happen. And then once you believe it, you go out and achieve it. So I don't want to be redundant, but what do you think is your favorite Michael Jackson era? Because clearly, what we
Yeah.
saw in that documentary, with, like I said, when he left Motown, and then him and his brothers wanted the ability to write their own music, which Motown wouldn't allow for. Um, the like they stepped out on their own, and it was a bold and daring risk, because who's to say if it would have worked or not? They had a successful formula at Motown that they were leaving behind and chase greener pastures, and they got it. It worked out, and I can't imagine what this world would have been like missing the voice of the Jacksons and Michael Jackson's if that had been silenced. Like, of course, we would have heard his interpretation of other people's music like we did during the Motown era. But what did he have to say? What did he feel? What did he think? What came from inside? Did he put the mirror on and the light on and shined it outward to the world, for the world to like see the inner makings of this man's mind, his heart, his deepest feelings, his past? Like, what would the world have been like if we didn't get that from him and his brothers? I just can't imagine. They were already talented, singing the songs that other people had written, but man, I'm glad them and Stevie were able to break away and find their own creative voice. And it's important for every true artist to be able to do that. That's what I believe. So I'm trying to think. What other questions?
Well, you asked me a question, but you didn't let me answer.
I'm sorry.
So, no, it's
I'm
okay.
good for doing that. I
think
get
you-
carried away when I
think
talk
you
about
asked me
the
what my
Jacksons.
favorite,
The
what my
Jackson
favorite era
Yes.
was, didn't you?
Yes, because this is clearly mine. This is clearly mine. I could just
Well,
go
I
on.
mean, I don't know what you call all the eras, but I think I like the Destiny tour era. Is that right?
Yes.
The
The
I
Destiny.
think. I mean, without really thinking about it, but that was just when I was watching this.
Okay.
It spoke to me the most. I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, I remember we talked about this at another time, and you were like, "Oh, definitely the Thriller era," which wasn't covered here because this is pre-Thriller.
Yeah.
But I mean, truthfully, if Thriller is your favorite era, that is okay.
But Thriller's my least favorite not least favorite hit. One of my least favorite hits.
As a song
Oh,
or
yeah.
as an album?
Well, as a song.
Okay.
As a song.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're
that's what
talking
we were
about like
talking
an
about.
era. Like,
Yeah.
there was an off the wall era where
Yeah.
Michael dressed a certain way, where
Yeah.
he was just coming into his own as a writer, where he was becoming an actor. They had this special on CBS, the Jacksons Family. They had a television show, a variety show. And so you saw him singing and dancing and working out skits, and then he did the Wiz. So this is my era, the one that Spike chose to highlight. They also had the Jackson 5 era where they were kids and they had the bubblegum sound, and then there's Thriller, and then there's After Thriller. But
so I would say I've switched, if I ever said that. I don't remember saying that. But the Destiny era and the Off the Wall era might be my second, or just equally. But those two.
Okay. So there's some overlap in our favorites, which is
just watching this documentary. I don't know. I just loved watching him perform during and just the performances that they showed on the documentary.
Okay. So from that era, what song do you think resonates with you? I mean, it's so many hits.
I know right now I can't even name one that's my favorite.
Okay.
Okay, name.
Well, I'll name my favorite.
What's your favorite?
Okay, so from this era that we're talking about, they didn't speak very much of it because they had to cover so much, and it basically is about Off the Wall and what led into making Off the Wall, and they gave background information on the Jacksons, how they started out as but like they kind of brushed over, like they made 2 albums with Gamble and Huff, who had the Philly sound,
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, Danae Bonds, I'm giving you a shout out because you're the only person that can claim to be a bigger Jackson fan than I am and get away with it. I don't believe you, and I'm not saying that I think that you are, but I definitely can tolerate you saying that you think that you are because we hung out together, and I know how you rock when it comes to Michael. Second to me, only. But anyway, and then we have a third member that he does some stuff with Motown Mondays. He's one of the original people that put together the Motown Mondays. I don't think he's around. I don't think he's in town now to promote the brand. But every now and then he'll pop through Motown Monday. But you know, um, Mr. Stubbs, I'm shouting you out too because I know that you're a fan. But as far as I know, you're number three. Me being one, Danae being two, and we always call you number three, Mr. Stubbs. So shout out to you too. But anyway, what was that?
Okay, so in
lost
high
my train.
school, in high school, my favorite song was Billie Jean. I mean, I love that song, but that wasn't even, I didn't even speak to that. And then the other favorite song that I have is, what is this?
Hold that thought, because I didn't finish mine,
Okay.
and I digress so far, but I got to get back to my point. So my favorite album is Going Places. They made, when they left Motown, they made this self-titled album called The Jacksons because they had to leave the Jackson 5 name with Motown. So when they switched labels, they couldn't be the Jackson 5 anymore. They became the Jacksons. And Jermaine stayed with Motown. Randy was inserted into the group. It was still 5 of them as the Jacksons. Every now and then, Jermaine would come back and it would be 6 Jacksons. But whatever the case is, they changed from the Jackson 5 to the Jacksons. So the first album was titled The Jacksons, and Enjoy Yourself was a standout cut. I like the album Going Places. That is, because to me it's too easy to say that Destiny is the best and the favorite. It's too easy to say that. So I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna go with Going Places. I love the tracks on this album. They got Different Kind of Lady. They got Heaven Knows I Love You Girl. They got Jump for Joy. Let's see, Man of War. Classic cuts. The only 2 tracks that I can fast forward, and it's funny because sometimes I listen to those and I could not really want to vibe off of them. Going Places, and I think it's Music's Taking Over. Those 2 tracks I think are from the Going Places album, and they don't move me like the other songs that they put on that album. They just don't. But sometimes when you listen to those songs as standalone songs, or you hear them in a club as a standalone song, you're like, wow, I can't believe that this song doesn't move me like the rest of the album. Like those are the songs that I'll fast forward through. But it's just like compared to the other songs on Going Places, yeah, I could skip Music's Taking Over, and I could skip Going Places. But if you want to enjoy the whole thing, then do listen to it. It's worth it. Like I said, it's one of my favorite albums that is, I think, highly slept on. I have a favorite Jackson 5 album that wasn't about this era, but I'll just throw that in because some people think that when I say that I like that album. But like Looking Through the Windows was the first Jackson 5 album that was ever gifted to me by my friends Becky and Dee Dee in Portland, Oregon. Shout out to y'all. And I just used to be in Portland, Oregon, like vibing out listening to that. Then my stepmother Liz, shout out to you, she bought me the Destiny album. And so I had Looking Through the Windows and the Destiny album, and that helped me make it through my year of stay in Portland, Oregon, where there was hardly no Black culture. Also, thank God the Wiz came out, and I was able to go see the Wiz and retain my, Blackness. So, this is why this era meant so much to me because the music that they were producing in this era um, was like my go-to savior. Like I was being drowned in white culture in Portland, Oregon. I became a major Kiss fan out there. Still love Kiss though, but I might have been into goth. I might have been like totally different with earrings and just dressed in black all day and a total punk rocker with spiked hair. If I wasn't, if I didn't have my Jackson 5 album or my Jackson's album to keep me balanced and grounded. So, like, that's why my relationship with Michael is personal. And I don't care what all these other haters feel and what they think. Like, this group, this man alone helped me stay in touch with who I am and help me to appreciate my culture, the sound, the rhythm, the talent. Special era. And it's like when I listen to it, I think of being a 7 and 8-year-old, 9-year-old little boy locked in my room, listening to these albums to ad nauseum, playing them till they had scratches, and even listening to them when they were skipping, and then probably on a particular track, it would skip so much I would have to eventually just like move the needle over a little bit so the rest of the album could continue to play. Oh my goodness, those were the days, man. Those were the days. If I was having a bad day, if I was sad, if I was missing New York, I would just go in my room and just play these albums, and I would feel like I was back home and stuff. So thank you, Jacksons. Thank you, Jacksons. I feel like we're not talking that much about Off the Wall. Let's try to end up with talking about. So, what did you learn in the documentary about the Off the Wall album in particular?
The Off the Wall album sort of was prepping for Thriller. I mean, it was it was kind of showing sort of what was next or what was coming, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it was like a preview of what's to come. You know what I'm saying? It was like right before this dude decided to blast off into orbit. You know what I mean? There was another point that I wanted to make. Oh, I wanted to talk about like this documentary covered like when he went to New York and was hanging out at Studio 54 and all the freedom and escapism that he had on the dance floor in those clubs, and he felt so free. Like that was beautiful to listen to. Also, what else did he say about that time period? The fact that that's when he met Quincy Jones, and that led to the making of Off the Wall. That led to the making of Thriller, and then Bad. That's when that dynamic duo got together. So important era. And I always think like when Michael went to New York to film The Wiz, and he saw like break dancers, and he saw just the disco in New York, like that helped him channel those influences into the making of Off the Wall, Thriller, and it kind of helped influence his art. And if you look at his art, it's a lot of hip hop in it. You know what I mean? So I want to credit New York City, his New York City experience, with some of his greatest dance moves and music ideas, dance routines. So what else did I want to say about Off the Wall? There was one other point that I need to make before we wrap this up. When he made The Wiz, like I said, that's when he met Quincy. But like The Wiz in and of itself had so many different generations and genres of black music and culture all wrapped into one. You had Lena Horne, you had Diana Ross, you had Nipsey Russell. All these people came together to make this film, and Luther Vandross wrote like Can You Feel a Brand New Day? And I think that some of Luther's writings kind of influenced some of Michael's later writings. The song "Can You Feel a Brand New Day." I mean, the way that it was such an inspirational song. Michael started to write a lot of inspirational songs, and I think it had a lot to do with the experiences that he had in New York filming The Wiz in this era, which is my favorite era, and it all just helped to shape and mold this guy into an even better artist than the one that he already was in his early Motown days. So, like I said, I could go on and on. Like, I think down the line, I'll just cover each album and give a review of it in chronological order. You know what I mean? But I'm starting off with this documentary, and this is short and it's as succinct as I can make it. But this is only the beginning. There's so much more that I have to share with you guys about Michael. But this is the tip of the iceberg. Also, when I talk about Off the Wall, I love tracks like Girlfriend. I love Falling in Love. She's Out of My Life, hands down, just ridiculous. Rock With You, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Just banger. Stevie helped to write a song on it. I couldn't help it. If I wanted to, I couldn't help it. Oh my goodness. The Michael and Stevie collabo, just ridiculous. It's just, it's the greatest stuff on this earth, you know what I mean? But anyway, like I said, gotta keep it short. I'm gonna stop now, even though I have a million more ideas and there's a million more things I can say about this era. Maybe I'll make a part 2 one day. But for now, go out, see the documentary. Spike, this is one of your best documentaries if you ask me. I mean, okay, wait, no, I take that back because I like, the documentary he did about the flood in New Orleans. Awesome. But this is your best Michael documentary. Hands down. Even though Bad was dope, but this was the best. All right, signing out. Peace out, y'all.